collaborative organization. My name is Agi Leśny. I'm a trainer, a creator of Pracownia Nauki i Przygody Foundation, and my today's special guest is Floor, one of the co-creators of the Scale of Cooperation model. Asha Keller is also with us. She has been our trainer and volunteer at the foundation for years, and so welcome everybody. Ten webinar będzie w języku angielskim, natomiast jeżeli ktoś z Państwa chciałby zadać pytania do Flora, to można to zadać po polsku na czacie i pod koniec naszego spotkania Asia pomoże w tłumaczeniu, natomiast całość poprowadzimy w języku angielskim, później będziemy wrzucać na YouTubie z tłumaczeniem. Mam nadzieję, że to nie jest duża przeszkoda. Now I have to switch my brain to two different languages. However, we are switching to English officially. So why we are here and who we are and why we invite you to spend this afternoon with us. So we as a Pracownia Nauki i Przygody, we are a non-governmental organization that has been fascinated about the concept of scale of cooperation from already many years, I would say. Over these years, we met personally and privately the creators of the model, so Fleur and Peter, with whom we already organize a lot of projects supporting other organizations from non-governmental sector, but also in business, in culture, public administration, healthcare. Scale of cooperation is going all around through many sectors. And we as an active NGO in Poland decide that scale of cooperation, we check it and we know it's working. We decided this is a treasure, so we want to share it and spread it all around Poland. So we create a project and win a 3 years grant to translate, localize, developed plenty of tools, organized offline and online meeting as you participate today, just to spread all around the knowledge about the scale. You can find more information about the project in our website. Asha, please type the address for Polish speakers. You can also join the Facebook group Skala Współpracy NGO, and there we are publishing a lot of information about the project itself. And it's important to say that the project is funded by Narodowy Instytut Wolności. We are very grateful for that, because then we have to really scale the scale. And this is one of the goals for us. And our question for today, why we are here, is how to use the scale of cooperation model to build a collaborative organization. And to find answer to this question, we'll talk to the creator of the model, Floor, but we'll also look at the case study of a very cool non-governmental Dutch organization, Baltendor, co-founded by Floor. I know the organization from many years already, and I can say you that there's in this organization scale of cooperation work daily, and even in the preparation time for this webinar, we are discussing with Floor that actually sometimes for me as a stranger is even easier to point how scale of cooperation work in Baltendor, but I would love you, Floor, later on to say how actually you can build organization all around the concept. So you will have the possibility to getting to know a little bit about the new organization. And the agenda for today. So first, very quick reminder, what is the scale of cooperation concept? Then the story of Baltendor. We'll switch to some questions to Floor. We'll do the short interview. And in the end of our meeting, we'll open the space for you. You can write questions, and hopefully, I hope, Floor, you will answer at least some of them. About click meeting, maybe this application is not very familiar for you. So just to remind, this meeting is recorded and it will be published, but without a chat. So chat is free. You can type so jokes or have a conversation. It will stay only for us. We cannot see you, unfortunately. We have to switch to webinar mode. However, I hope you can see us. Please feel free to write your questions, share your thoughts during the whole meeting. Asha will respond to that, and later on we'll just address this question to Floor. Ja jeszcze raz to powiem, jeżeli pisanie po angielsku jest dla Państwa wyzwaniem, serdecznie zapraszamy do tego, żeby pisać po polsku. Asia pomoże przetłumaczyć i zadać to pytanie naszemu gościowi. So, scale of cooperation, the main concept that gather us here, just a short reminder. Yeah, Floor. So, yeah, it's my pleasure and probably very big honor to ask you to summarize the concept for our audience today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction and the invitation for today. As you already mentioned, we had a nice chat up front to explore a bit the topic of today, and it was a great opportunity for me to also think about what did we actually do in our NGO Buitendoor that it worked so well. But well, let's get to the scale of cooperation first, to make sure we have a common view of this concept for the coming hour. We many years ago we discovered that often when people talk about cooperation, they all say cooperation, but they mean actually something different. Or you might recognize this, that cooperation is like a container word for a lot of different meanings. So we figured out that we have to give more language and more words, a better overview to this word, because otherwise if you ask a group of people, do you cooperate, the answer will always be yes. Or they might say, well, we're not in a conflict, so we are cooperating. Or no, we never cooperate, we only have conflicts here. Those are basically the three answers that you get if there is no language to discuss in more detail what cooperation means. So that's why we started to create the scale of cooperation based on a lot of input from a lot of people in many different teams. For years, we gathered information from teams. We basically asked them, what is cooperation for you? And then we wrote those things on the flip chart. And then we also asked, so what is not cooperative behavior to you? And then we also wrote that on a flip chart. And you can imagine if you do this over and over again, you start to see patterns. And if you summarize those patterns, you have a scale of cooperation. Where the basic idea, and for a long time, it was also only the top layer of this scale. Actually, those three words, struggling, avoiding, and cooperating. I think for 10 years, we worked only with these three words before we started to go more in detail and add more words and concepts and points of view. The basic idea is that whenever people cooperate, there are really different worlds how you might experience a cooperation. I hope and I assume that most of us all have experienced cooperation as it's often meant, where you add your qualities to each other, you have a common goal, 1 + 1 becomes 3. You achieve amazing things together because you cooperate, and there is trust, there is equality, and there is space to grow together. However, not every cooperation is like this. You probably have also been in teams or groups or situations where you felt a lot of resistance between the people. You maybe were part of the same team, but you felt like you were working in opposite directions, having different goals, or maybe having a different view of what to do and not being able to discuss this in a constructive way. So this struggling world, which is also, I think, a way for people to survive. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's also a way of, hey, you want to go there, I want to go there. This won't work for us. So we have to figure out something. But then it is conflict, and you might feel resistance, and you might not get closer to a common goal at that moment. Later on, we realized there is also something in between, which is actually the most interesting part. It's the world of avoiding. And if I look at our work here in the Netherlands, basically all over Europe, if I work with teams, I think 80 or 90% of the teams that we see is most of the time avoiding. Often with good intentions, but they don't manage to really get to cooperation because there are a lot of things you have to do and energy you have to put in and efforts you have to make to get to cooperation, and people often avoid that step. So they stay in working very hard on their own, doing their own things, but not necessarily as cooperation. On the other side, people also try to avoid conflict in many situations because a lot of people say, hey, it's better to, well, I will just do my thing and I will leave that person alone instead of going into a conflict or a challenging situation. So we might gossip, we might complain about the person or the situation, but we don't seek the confrontation. And I think a lot of behavior happens in this avoiding world that is in between the other two, and it's a good place to lean back a bit, to observe what happens around you. But if you manage to take the step to cooperation together, I really believe you will achieve more in the end. So that as a very short summary of the basic idea behind the concept.
Yeah, the concept of the main concept of the model is very simple. However, the full theory could be complex and consist a lot of layers. Actually, 8, I believe. We won't talk much about the model itself today. Asha, please, if you could share some links and resources when our guests can find more information. There are podcasts already, some websites, LinkedIn profile. So if you want to learn more, there's a lot of resources. However, for now, we invite you to watch a short movie on how you can look at the scale of cooperation in the context of feedback, because this is already one of the answer how to use the model to build a collaborative organization. And we believe the movie will give everybody the main highlights about the model. So yes, now I will invite you to watch and listen for a moment.
In every team, people make mistakes. But the capacity of the team for turning mistakes into learning points may vary a lot. Let's use the scale of cooperation to have a look at feedback, because there is a huge difference in feedback given from the different paradigms of struggling, avoiding, and cooperating. Let me give you a brief insight into these 3 paradigms. Struggling is a state in which people put pressure on each other and criticize each other. It's the world of being in conflict and I win, you lose. Cooperating is a state in which people appreciate and trust each other. It's where 1 + 1 becomes 3. Avoiding is the world in between these 2 almost opposite paradigms. This is where people observe, think, wait, and avoid contact in both positive and negative ways. We give feedback in so many different ways. Let's try and link them to these 3 paradigms. Imagine that you are addressing a mistake or an issue. As you call somebody out on making that mistake, he might try to defend himself. Adding pressure might get you a short-term result, but the chances are high that you are actually creating resistance. When we get locked into the struggling paradigm, we stop listening to criticism and might hide or defend mistakes. Because admitting that a mistake is made can be dangerous for your ego, your reputation, your job, you name it. And the best way of hiding mistakes is shifting the attention to another area or person where mistakes were also made. This whole process can easily lead to frustration and conflict. Sometimes you want to address something, but you don't know how to say it, or you want to avoid the direct confrontation. You might talk about it with others, and before you know it, you are locked in a complaining or gossiping mode. This is where struggling and avoiding meet in the feedback. I'll give the feedback, just not directly to you. What happens when you step completely into the paradigm of avoidance and observation? You avoid the conflict, which can be positive, but you also stop influencing people, staying safely within your own mind. Or is it really safe? People might need your influence to create a better situation. As soon as things like appreciation and recognition come into play, we are moving towards the paradigm of cooperation. And this is where we most often encounter hints. Well-intended advice, free for the other to pick up. Things like, wouldn't it be better if you did this, are not real feedback, rather a hint. And it's good to realize that hints are open-ended. It is easy for the other person to avoid or completely miss the point. Hints depend on the receiver's ability and willingness to deduce the feedback that's hidden within them. The difference between struggling and cooperation is either giving or not giving the appreciation and recognition to each other. Do you appreciate your colleague? Then say it, without overdoing it. A true compliment at the right moment will cost you nothing, but can gain you a really important thing in return: more willingness to listen to each other. Almost all of the world's official feedback models require a certain measure of trust to work effectively. Without appreciation and trust, none of them will work. Because both giving and receiving feedback can be a scary thing. But as long as I feel that you see the whole of me and not just my flaws, then the chances of success for feedback are much bigger.
Yay! So I hope that everybody now have some feeling, at least, what is scale of cooperation. And let's move from the theoretical concept to the ground. Let me start from my personal story. So soon after I get to know the scale of cooperation, and you, Floor, you and your friends co-create an outdoor association, Baltendor Youth Association. And for more than 10 years already, we did a lot of programs and projects, and I saw how your organization grew. Very often, when I ask where the success factor is, like what is the phenomenon, you answer, you or your friends, also volunteers from organization, among other things, that yeah, this is the scale of this is the scale of cooperation. This is how the scale really works in the organization. That's why today we will talk a little bit about the Baltendor. You are not any longer on the Baltendor board, but we know that the organization is still existing and growing, and we keep in touch and doing cool Erasmus project together. So can you say how it begins? And then we will show our audience a short movie about Baltendor and ask you to say a few words about the organization itself. However, I know that there is also scale of cooperation story around how the organization was created. So if you can share some part of the story, I would appreciate.
Yeah. Actually, to first to comment, last Saturday we had actually to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the organization. We had a meeting with all the board members and people that were involved in the organization, and it was, like you said, it was immediately there was cooperation in the room when you put all those people together. So it was that was really nice to experience. However, the start of the organization was an interesting process. Most of the people that started Buitendor used to be in the YMCA in the Netherlands, which is also a youth organization where we also had a department that did outdoor programs with youth groups. At some point, 11 years ago, the YMCA decided to quit and close this department for outdoor programs because they wanted to have more focus and attention on the other departments, which was a fair decision for them. For us, it meant that in my case, I lost my job, and for a lot of our volunteers, they lost their voluntary work. And we had a lot of schools and other organizations that lost a supplier for nice programs. So that was for us a reason to say, hey, we have all these volunteers that want to contribute to society, to youth, to beautiful programs. We have the equipment, we have the knowledge. It would be a waste to throw this all away. So let's start a new organization to continue this nice work. The YMCA was really open to this, so we had a cooperative break with the YMCA, which is also an interesting topic maybe to touch on later. But when things don't go well together, you can still choose to separate in a cooperative way, which happened here. We said, okay, we go in different directions. However, we appreciate each other and we support each other. Then we were with 3 people that were supposed to be the first board members of this new organization. And one of them was one of my best friends for years already. And in the process of getting to founding the organization, we realized that we actually had a very different vision or very different ideas, expectations of how this would work. So at some point, me and the other person that in the end founded the organization had to decide to not continue with this third guy that was actually one of my best friends, which was a very interesting situation to say to one of your best friends, like, hey, I'm not going to start an organization with you. But I believe, looking back now, it was the best thing to do. We're still friends, luckily. It took a bit of time to repair some of the resistance that was created there, but starting something together where you actually have different goals in mind will eventually lead to conflict. And one of the key elements of cooperation is having the same goal in mind. And if already at the start you feel we're not having the same vision, goal, ideas here, I think it's important to also have the courage then to decide to do something different. So that is how it all started for us. And like I said, the organization was founded and works really well until today. And my friendship is still alive.
Oh, congratulations. It sounds like a big challenge, really. Okay, so because we are talking about Baltendor, because we know Baltendor, I mean you and me, maybe some of our audience too, if you have been on Baltendor project, you can share some stories in the chat. But in the meantime, I will show you a video how Baltendor works, that you can have this feeling, the taste, what kind of organization it is. And I will ask you, Fleur, maybe to describe it a little bit, that our audience could have this feeling how the organization works. And yeah, it's a very nice movie. So you can see, yeah, treehouse building. This is something about Baltendor, and enjoy your movie. And I will listen your comments, Fleur.
Yes. I'm not sure if you can hear me with the music on. Right, so
Do you hear the music? Because I cannot hear the music.
I was hearing the music,
Oh,
but now I turned it off on my computer, so I
okay.
hope
So
it works for everyone.
yeah. Can I ask somebody for the comment? Do you listen? Could you hear the music or not? Czy ktoś może mi napisać na czacie, czy słychać muzykę, czy nie? Bo nie powinno być słychać. Chcemy mieć ją wyłączoną. O nie, dobra.
So I think if you in your own
Okay.
screen you can also turn off the music in the YouTube
Tak.
part.
Tak, to w takim razie niestety, ponieważ film ma komentarze po holendersku, to zachęcam Państwa, żeby Jeżeli możecie nie, wy nie będziecie możecie ściszyć. Okay, so Floor, we'll just show the movie because it's just I don't want to go into technicals. Our audience can for 3 minutes hear how you are talking in Dutch, and then
Great.
and then yeah, we can have some story.
I will give a summary afterwards.
Wij zijn Stichting Buitendoor en we zijn een buitensportorganisatie waarbij het niet alleen om de buitensportactiviteiten gaat, maar waarbij de focus ligt op het ontwikkelen van een duurzame samenwerking binnen groepen. Dus het verbeteren van communicatie en samenwerken. Daarvoor zetten wij allerhande buitensportactiviteiten in, zoals het bouwen van gigantische boomhutten in de bomen, op het terrein hier waar we nu zijn op de Veluwe. Maar daarnaast doen we survivalprogramma's in de Ardennen met klimmen, abseilen, mountainbiken. Maar ook teambuildingprogramma's in Nederland, introductiedagen op scholen. En al die activiteiten zetten we dus in met als doel het verbeteren van de samenwerking in die groep.
Now you have to translate every word on this cloud. No, I'm joking. I hope our audience already have some brief feelings what is Baltendor, but if you can say a little bit more about this non-governmental organization, I would be very happy to hear.
Yeah, so I think what you saw in the movie is a lot of people being involved in many sorts of cooperation. Because I think when we founded Buitendoor, we had one goal. We want to improve cooperation in youth groups. We said, okay, we focus, most of the outdoor organizations in the Netherlands are commercial organizations that work with companies, they work with bachelor parties, groups of students, youth, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as it brings money. We said we want to do it differently. We have a specific focus. We want to work with youth groups and we want to focus on cooperation. Because we realized cooperation is not a subject that you learn in school. You might have to do a project together every now and then, but there is no teacher teaching you cooperation, in most schools at least. So we have to find other ways of bringing kids into an environment where they can experiment, experience, and learn about cooperation. And of course, because we like outdoors, we found this the perfect environment, because outdoor activities give a lot of opportunities for practicing cooperation. So in everything we did, we were searching for ways of how can we make this a cooperation activity. And I think the treehouse building is the most beautiful example, because it is impossible to build a treehouse like that on your own. In every step of the process, there is cooperation, communication, leadership needed to get to the next step. These big beams, you can only lift them up with at least 4, sometimes even more people, and then you need people working together to make the knots up in the trees, and there is all these elements of cooperation that you have there. So that has always been the core of Buitendoor, finding activities that help people to learn about cooperation, young people, and put them together in a program. But I think there is much more around the activities, where we also were trying to see how can we make this a part of the experience of cooperation, because it's not, a program is more than the activities. It's also eating together, being around the campfire, just doing all the daily things that have to be done, like the dishes. It's, and all of these things you can also see how can we make it more cooperative. So that
Yes.
has been and still is the aim of Buitendoor. And I think in terms of practice what you preach, that brought us to building an organization in which cooperation was also present and a key factor. And I think that's why we are here today.
Yeah. And I think it's good to mention that it's a big organization. It's more than 100 volunteers, I think, now. And who organize the summer camps for schools, for kids, also for business groups, international project. Treehouse building is one of the, let's say, the most recognizable activity of Buitendoor that I know, but I know that you are doing the cycling, the hitchhiking, not the hitchhiking, the trekking, the climbing, all around outdoor activities and in experiential education context. For a purpose, for this cooperation. And really believe me that being this is for our audience, that being on the Buitendoor, when you are on the Buitendoor camp, you really feel that something is different. The way how people talk each other, how you're doing, as you mentioned, practical stuff, dishes, cleaning toilets. You can really feel this cooperation, not as a theoretical concept, as a rule of behaving around people. And it is really amazing how you can see the model that we are talking about working in people behavior and in program of Buitendoor. So if you have any question about Buitendoor, maybe you can write it down. Pracownia Nauki i Przygody is doing some projects with Buitendoor. So I believe we'll have opportunity to cooperate more, I hope. And now let's switch to some questions that I have to you about, really how to use the theoretical concept to supporting, to helping other organization. And let's start from the question how the scale of cooperation is helpful for you while you are working with the organization, from different type of organization that you are working with.
Yeah, so I think always the first step when we bring the skill of cooperation to an organization is that it gives them a language to talk about cooperation. This is always like we explained in the beginning, it's a very difficult topic to discuss if you don't have a language for it. So first step is always sharing the skill with them. So from that moment on, we have a language to talk about cooperation and to make a distinction between different types of cooperation.
But does it means that in most of the project or in every project you are just showing people, okay, this is scale of cooperation and you are here, and how you build this language?
Yeah, well, as you saw in the movie of Buitendoor, but also in our work with companies, with organizations, doesn't really matter actually. We really believe in experiential learning. Cooperation is behavior which you don't learn only from a book or a screen. you need to practice it. So we really believe in doing something, giving the group a task in which they have to cooperate. And then we get an insight of how they cooperate. We see in the behavior, in the language, in the non-verbal communication, we see what's going on in the group, which gives us a first impression, and which makes it also a lot easier to later on talk about cooperation. So mostly our first step is let's do something together, and then let's bring in the skill, this tool to have a language to talk about it.
Okay.
And from that moment on, the program will develop depending on if it's a one-day training course with a company or it's a one-week camp with a group of youngsters. But often our starting point is this, doing something and then creating this language to talk about it.
And using again Baltendor as a case study, because you have a long-term, you can work with the organization for a long-term perspective, not as only one-day training. And when I asked you, you said that in Baltendor, skill of cooperation is in the system somehow. And can you try to describe it, how you can actually implement this kind of theory in this system of the organization? Give us some examples.
Yeah, that is a good question, because I think in the end, if you boil it down to the basics of cooperation, it's about the interaction between people. So that is not in a system, that's not in an organization. In the end, it comes back to how one individual reacts to another individual. That in the end defines the cooperation. However, there are of course things that you can do to at least facilitate the people in the organization to cooperate more. And I think that comes in a couple of steps. Where if I look at Buitendor, the first thing we did was create or try to create a very clear vision of what we wanted to do. If it's not clear what you want to do and why, I think it is impossible to cooperate. But also in the case of an NGO, if you work with volunteers, volunteers come for a reason. They don't come to earn money because it's voluntary work. They come for another reason. And so being a volunteer organization without a clear goal, I think, is an almost impossible combination. So this was a starting point for us. Like, we have to create this clear vision of what we want to do, which is definitely not earning money. We want to bring something to the young people in our world to help them learn about cooperation and be better people in their future lives, in a way. And I think this is what has always brought everyone together. This is what the volunteers want to contribute to. This is why we as board members spend so much time on building this organization, because we believe in what we wanted to do there. So that, I think, is always a starting point. And I often, especially in more commercial business, that there is not a real clarity about these goals. There is, of course, the aim of making money. And if you make money one year, the next year you have to make a bit more money than you did in the previous year. And
it's
so
a very clear goal. Come on.
It is a very clear goal, but it's not the type of goal that will bring and bind people together.
Okay.
So I would advise every manager, executive, leader in the world to also be a leader in a volunteer organization for a while, because I think it teaches you a lot about connecting people and without money as the primary issue. So that's always, I think, the first step. Know what you want to do together. And if you call it a vision or a mission or objective or goal or your why, your purpose, I think that doesn't matter, as long as you have this clear point that you're all heading towards.
Yeah, however, we know organization who has a very nice poster of the mission in the office, and maybe the owner really know and feels the goal, but how you how you success in a way that every volunteer of Baltendor feel this goal and you use it as something to glue you together.
Yeah, that is very recognizable. I think in the end that's by talking about it, by making sure it comes back in everything you do. So that's like I said, in our programs we were all the time thinking about how can we make every element of a day about cooperation, without of course forgetting that young people also need free time and time off and so on. But I think that's also in the end contributing to the goal. But to think about in the program, but also in how in our organization, when being together, we were always speaking about what the goal is and how we're going to achieve this in this specific situation. And I think when this becomes a habit, that the starting point of thinking about a program, a situation is always first, okay, why are we actually here? And then, okay, so what should we do next? You could say you might know the golden circles concept from Simon Sinek, but why, how, what. I think if you start with why, then all the rest will follow. But it's something that you have to do consciously. You have to keep this on top of mind altogether, and that I think the leaders in an organization have an important role in this. So I think as a board, we were always focusing a lot on the leaders in our organization that would, be responsible for leading one program for a day or a week. Those are the key persons to build a cooperative atmosphere in the team for that week. And we as a board again focused on them, making them aware of, hey, this is an important topic to keep on talking about. So yeah, it's more than a poster. It's something that should be in everything you are doing, and that only happens when the key people in an organization are actively doing this.
Yeah, and you mentioned a very important thing, to create a habit. Yeah, so for example, for you in Baldendor, there was a habit that in the end of the camp day, you sit together and discuss about the day related to the goal, and it's become obvious for people how it works. Yeah, I know that there are more thing in your system about the mindset. Mindset is a very powerful part of the scale of cooperation, that you can work on the mindset with the mindset in the organization, and also feedback as a very, very important tool. But let's try imagine, actually you don't have to imagine, we have some leaders of the NGO today with us, and they would like to start use the model in their organization. What would be your recommendation for the first step? Where to start?
Yeah, so one step I think before starting with the skill is reflecting about, do we have this clear goal that we spoke about before? And is this clear to everyone in the organization? And do we spend enough time on emphasizing on this? But then I think a next step is to be able to use the skill, people need to know about it. So in our organization, in all our onboarding trainings, but also for people that were already with the organization for many years, it would still be a tool that would come back every now and then when we were meeting with the team, with all the volunteers. People need to know about the tool, about the language, before you can start using it, putting it into practice. So a first step is teaching your people, your board members, your leaders, your employees, your volunteers about the skill, which can of course be done by hiring a training company that will do this for you. But of course, it's also something you can do yourself.
And it came to my next question, because we know scale of cooperation as a model, as a theory on the website or in the book, but actually, is there any tools or method inside the concept that I can use for my organization development?
Well, I think there are many ways of using the skill. Like you said, it's a theory, and then you have to bring it to the people, which you before you show the bookmark, which is I think the most simple way. If you hand out the bookmark to people, then everyone has it in their hands, and you can say, okay, let's talk about it. What do you recognize? This is a very simple way. Well, you in this project, you created a game, which maybe all of you are aware of. If not, make sure you get to know it. It's a playful way of actually experiencing all these different types of cooperation and then talking about it and seeing what to do with that. Visibility of the model is helpful, which it could be a poster in your office, but it could also be just copying the model every now and then into a PDF of a program, or handing out the bookmarks, or all these things, the repetition of seeing it and hearing about it helps in making it a habit to talk about it. And then I think, again, you can teach many things to people if you don't come back to it, if you don't make it a habit, something that is in your system. And that is also, in the end, human behavior. If you don't do these things, then it was a nice workshop, a nice theory, a nice new model, and then it's gone.
Yeah. And in Baltendor, who knows the model? The board, the leaders, everyone. In the whole organization, everybody knows the model. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that you can ask any person in Baltendor about skill of cooperation, and they will be able to explain you the concept.
Even
on headlines,
not very engaged volunteer, like really everybody.
Yeah, because I think it's always the starting point. If you become a volunteer, you do the onboarding program, which will basically start with the skill of cooperation.
Okay.
Among some other theories, it's not the only thing that we use, not the only concept, but it's like the umbrella, and it will come back in everything.
So my last question for you now is, just imagine that I'm coming to you or any other experts with of scale of cooperation, and I'm saying to you that there is a lot of avoiding behavior in my organization, my team. I see, of course, that everybody declaring cooperation, but when something needs to be done, there is nobody, no one comes forward. And I see a lot of burnout and avoidance of taking responsibility, but everybody around, when you ask, yeah, let's do that, but then I'm alone. What would be your recommendation? How I can use the scale of cooperation to help change that in my organization?
Yeah, that's it's a good question. It's something we encounter a lot in organizations. And then I think our step is always to look at what is missing for these people to make the step towards cooperation. There are certain things that need to be in place to be able to cooperate effectively. One of the things you saw in the movie was appreciation. If there is not enough appreciation for each other, for what the people are doing, they might not feel enough trust to step into this world of cooperation. Because cooperation also means sometimes being a bit vulnerable, means giving up some of your personal freedom and habits to work in a way that is better for everyone in the end. So if you don't feel appreciated, if you don't feel the trust, you won't be vulnerable and you won't give up your old habits. Then it's easier to do what you've always done, which means work hard on your own, and then there is more work coming, and then you work harder. And that's where the burnout, for example, comes in. So it's either is appreciation missing, is trust missing, do the people actually know each other well enough, is there clarity about goals, roles, expectations? Those are some of the things that have to be in place before cooperation is possible. And it's identifying what might be missing and then finding ways of building that. So trust building could be done by certain team building exercises, but it's also by sharing personal stories with each other. talking about concerns, about expectations in life. The more you invest in getting to know each other, the more trust you will build. Which brings me to, I'm saying you have to invest in it. I think dedicating time to cooperation is key. It's one of the other keys that you should. We said you have to have a clear goal. You have to have the language that should be known to everyone, but you also have to dedicate time. I often compare teams and organizations to, for example, a soccer team, where a soccer team is spending the whole week training to become better, and then they have to perform for 90 minutes in a match.
One match. Yeah.
In most organizations is that they are performing all year long, and then they might have one day to have a team building. So it's the completely other way around.
Opposite, yeah.
So I think if you dedicate time to cooperation, to communication, to sharing, this might sometimes feel like a loss of time to people. They're like, we don't have time to talk about these things. I really believe, I'm sure that you will win this time back later on in the process. So it's a long-term investment, but it is necessary. Without spending time dedicated to cooperation, you won't get there. And what you do in that time depends on where you are with your organization.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we don't have any question yet. However, if you want to ask something, this is the time. Jeśli macie jakieś pytanie do Flora, to jest ten moment, żeby je napisać na czacie, bo powoli będziemy podsumowywać nasze spotkanie, więc zachęcam do tej możliwości, żeby samego twórcę modelu o coś podpytać. So I encourage everybody to maybe think about the question, and meanwhile, I want to show, because you mentioned appreciation, and appreciation is actually a key. So we say in scale of cooperation, we have keys. And you can also use and work over these keys to help people go to the particular part of the scale. And for example, appreciation is in cooperating mode. So this is very important for me. It was a new thing to think about working with keys. So if you jump into the model, you will find 9 of them, and every key is opening a door.
And I think the keys that you want to use are the ones that lead to cooperation. The keys that lead to avoiding or struggling are ones to be aware of. And when you see that behavior happening, it's something. It's not necessarily bad if it happens, but it's a warning sign. To see, hey, is this something that we have to deal with in a way?
Okay. There's one question from Veronica. Could you recommend any games or plays or team building activity that you would recommend in the context of Scale of Cooperation?
Of course, I have my personal favorites.
Let me guess.
You know what I'm going to say. One of my favorite team building games is the Ball Factory, which you might know or not, I don't know. But what I like about the Ball Factory is that it's actually the team is playing in rounds of 2 minutes, and in between every round of executing the task, there is time to reflect and discuss, which makes it a beautiful exercise to go step by step into more cooperation. You can really guide the team through this process. So that's why it's one of my preferred exercises to start with. I think basically almost every exercise could work, but it's nice if it has a clear goal in it, and if it's complex enough, because real life, the real world is very complex. We often, in whatever organization you are, you have to deal with many factors that could influence your performance, you achieving what you want to achieve, the cooperation. So the more you can reflect this in a game, a challenge, the better.
If you are looking for Ball Factory, jeśli szukasz, Weronika, tej gry, you can find it on our website as a Fabryka Piłek. This is the game that we play a lot with Floor and Baltendor. Very nice, team building activity, and of course Pair Hunters, a new game designed by Pracownia Nauki I Przygody, free of charge in our project, so you can use it too. So it's.
I want to add one thing, because often, at least in the Netherlands, when we talk about team building, a lot of people think like, hey, we go out for bowling, for riding bikes or kick bikes or scooters, or we do that for 1 hour, then we drink beers, have a nice meal, and that was team building. I'm not saying it's not, because I think this also adds to the process that you have to be in with a team. But I'm always looking for a balance between activities or elements where there is conscious attention to the topic of cooperation, combined with more relaxed elements where people are just together, doing something together, enjoying together. Both is important, but it should be both of them together and not the one or the other.
Okay, so we are heading to the end. So after a long discussion, it was really 2 hours of our discussion with Floor. We prepared some kind of a summary, what steps and action you can take to work to build a collaborative organization using the scale of cooperation. So we group it into tips into 3. So the organization level, leadership level, and members level. And if you're looking for the organization level, the recommendation that we have to first have a live and clear vision, mission, goal, core values that everybody knows. So if it's not clear for you, or if it's not clear for a member of your organization, this is your first step. Second one is training leaders or stakeholders, the main person in organization, to use the scale of cooperation as a content for training for instructors or for leaders. And also what Floor, you mentioned, create time for cooperation. So and dedicate resources. Oh, sorry, my cat is screaming. Dedicate resources for that. Yes, so we have to have a culture. We have to have money. We have to have time to cooperation. Otherwise, it's not working. And also make a scale of cooperation visible. You can use poster, you can use bookmarks, marks, whatever, website, manuals, whatever works for you, that people have this model all around them and they can relate to that. And jumping to the leaders, so of course get to know the concept, then have this habit or personal reflection and action. So asking yourself where I am on the scale in the area of my most frequent activity. Do our leaders actually sponsor our goals as role models in our organization? What is my mindset? What is my goal? Is my goal is related to organization goals? So like have this habit to think about it. And you can really, I use scale a lot, just really look to this model and ask to help me for personal reflection. Also use the scale of cooperation as language in meeting, relating to the model. So asking clarified questions. How is it a feedback or is it a hint, or what do you mean? I remember Peter the co-founder of the model, like asked me, I think 50 times, are you looking for troubles or are you looking for solutions, to help me understand where is my mindset. And this is really in the language. Also support team building, so you have time to celebrate the success. You have team member empowerment talks, all the thing that you mentioned, Floor, before. And use those keys as a guidelines, as a hints, for the steps when you want to think about what to do. Keys are they are a good source. And the members level, and this is a funny story about the members level. Could you share it, Flora?
I'm curious which one you mean.
The mean that we, after 20-minute discussion, realized that actually the member level is the same as leader level because it works like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in the end, it's behavior between people. If you add up all the behaviors of the people in a group, you get how the group cooperates. And we already know for years, because people keep asking us, is there something about leadership and the skill? And then we try to find ways of what is different for the leaders. And we realized time and time again that actually there is no difference in what people should do. However, um, because you are a leader, often people are, well, more waiting for your example for you to take the first step. So I think being aware of this is important, that as soon as you start doing something, people will follow. But in the end, what you do, what you expect is the same from all the people in the organization.
Because we have personal leadership too. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just that often when you are a leader, people will expect you to be the first one to do it.
Yeah, so as you can see, the members level, it's not really something new. It's again, get to know the concept, have this habit or personal reflection, and use the scale of cooperation as a language. This is super easy, but very helpful. So when we think about it from the like in the system in the organization, so first step will be learn it, understand that there are plenty of resources. Asha already mentioned something on our chat, but also in our project there's Strefa Wiedzy on the website. You can find a lot of resources. Then name it, so start to use the language, try to name it, try to relate what's going on with the language that the scale of cooperation propose, and then start to use it, starting from yourself, and you will be a magnet for the organization. This is what we know from the experience. And from what could be the road between people. So first, getting to know each other, this is super important. And you mentioned onboarding, but this is something so easy to forget, that people actually have to know each other. Then invest time to build the trust. Without trust, there is no cooperation. This is what we know from the model. So building trust using many different tools is the next step. Then be sure that you have the same goals and expectations, so you're looking in the same direction. It would be the crucial thing to move to the scale, to the green corner. Yeah, do you have any comment on that, Floor?
I think one thing to summarize it, in the end, it comes down to accepting responsibility of your part in the cooperation. It's always easy to say that the other person has to change something, and that the other person forgot or did something wrong, and we're all human, so we will all do or feel this every now and then. But I think as soon as you get to, okay, hey, I have a part in this as well, because if it's about cooperation, there are always at least two people that play a part.
Yeah.
When you accept your role, your responsibility, you can always see, okay, what could I have done differently, or what can I do differently now to move back to cooperation. And this is, I think, where it always comes back to.
That you have a power.
You have.
You have a power. Yes. So in the end, I just want to mention that the model offers a lot more than we show today. You can learn more. There are many layers and tools and concepts inside, and they are keep inventing new, so you have to be fast to keep updating, otherwise in a year there would be probably something new. And you can learn more, and you can join the community of the enthusiasts of the models in our project. You can be a member of the project in the big scale. You can be a member of Scale of Cooperation community, so we are very open as a community for new people who wants to use it. And we encourage you to act, to start to use model in your organization, and also give us feedback. So please share with us your case studies, write it down, or contact us, or call me, because we want to collect examples how it works in your organization. And yeah, it's very inspiring how other organizations in different contexts, not only outdoor education, use the scale, and you can actually contribute to this whole concept by your case study. So we very open for the stories from your organization. And in the end, about the feedback, I would like you to I would love to ask you to give us feedback. There are some open questions inside. If there's something more interesting for you, please let us know. I will switch to Polish for a minute. Proszę, jeśli są jakieś inne kwestie, które są dla Was ciekawe w skali współpracy, chcielibyście, żebyśmy o coś poprosili Flora, twórców, czy my w teamie tworzącym ten projekt coś Wam dostarczyli, to jest ten moment, żeby to napisać tutaj w ankiecie albo skontaktować się z nami. Wszystkie dane są na stronie NGO Skala Współpracy.pl, a my jesteśmy pracownią nauki i przygody i łatwo nas znaleźć. Yeah, so thank you very much, Floor. It was a very big pleasure to have you here. I feel it like a little bit that you are in Poland now. I hope you will physically join us soon. And thank you very much that even if you are very busy, you're supporting NGOs in Poland to use the scale of cooperation. For us, is super important. And this is really how the scale of cooperation works, you know, that I don't have to use a contact form if I need your help. I know how to contact you, and I have trust that you will respond if you have resources for that. So I'm really grateful for that. And please, I hope in the end of the project, maybe there will be possibility that you can come to Poland, and we'll share some stories about project and scale of cooperation in NGO context in Poland.
I would love to. It was great to be here. So thanks for the invitation and for thinking together about this topic, because I think that is also what cooperation is for me. It's developing, it's co-creation, it's getting somewhere together. Thank you everyone for joining and listening, and I hope it's helpful.
I hope too. The next step for us, we want to create a brochure, the manual for organization with tips. So again, please, if you already use the scale of cooperation, you have some case, please contact us. We will happy to include your story in the official manual, how to support others in using scale of cooperation. So thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the evening, and rest of the evening we'll publish this webinar on the YouTube. So I hope it's gonna be a good resource for you, and you can share it with other people from many organizations in Poland. Keep in touch. Thank you.